Okay. On a completely different note, you were born in Tobago,
I was
right?
born in Tobago.
So
Yes,
how old were you when you left?
I was 10.
How do you think that upbringing really influenced, your musical trajectory and your science?
Okay, so I don't know if you know anything about West Indian parents, but West Indian parents are very focused on education.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up in a West Indian household, and that was the number one thing.
Mm-hmm.
We all had to do something that was challenging.
Yes.
I probably internalized that differently. I thought that meant you had to go and do something hard. So I've always been looking for something deep. It was
Mm-hmm.
just the way I was wired,
Right.
my siblings all went into more traditional careers, but it's not as if they didn't go into physics. Okay, so
Yes.
they picked the standard careers that people have, medicine and law, and whereas that didn't really interest me. So yeah, so with that as the foundation, and my parents maintained a West Indian household as I was growing up. So yeah, that was definitely the major driving force and inquiry, asking
Mm-hmm.
questions, so
Yeah. Yeah, and that's also just such a big part of, science. And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, yeah.
Musically,
So, mm-hmm.
my father played the clarinet, my sisters played the violin. Um, I didn't have a whole lot of musical talent, I would have to say.
Mm-hmm.
That was clear in those days. We couldn't afford a piano, so I did music theory
Wow.
as a kid,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
which was just fractions, so I liked it.
Yeah, there's so much math involved in that. There's
Well,
like common
let's just say it's
denominators.
not math, it's arithmetic.
Yes.
Let's not elevate it. It's arithmetic. And so to me, it was just, oh, well, this is just,
Yeah.
playing with some fractions. Okay, I'll do this for a while. No problem, folks.
Yeah.
You think this is hard? No, this is not hard. It's just some adding some fractions that have different
Uh-huh.
denominators. How hard is that? So that was my first experience with music in Boston. We moved to Boston when I was 10.
Okay.
And it was interesting. I was taking piano lessons, but we didn't have a piano.
Mm-hmm.
So I never
Wow.
practiced. So
Okay.
so it was all theory. And as a result, the teacher just gave me some music books and I would just go and do it was fraction exercises, okay?
Yeah, no, I would say that's pretty talented. I would say that's pretty
No,
good.
that's just having a math background, okay? Let's not elevate it.
Um, wow. Okay. So, music theory, piano lessons. Um, how have your experiences with music changed as you've grown?
Okay, so then when we moved out of Boston, we actually did. Um, I think my parents did get a piano. Yes, that's right. We
Okay.
weren't. We were we came from I came from an educated family, but they didn't have a lot of means. My father was a professor.
Mm-hmm.
There were five kids. My mother didn't work, and so I think being in an academic town, you could easily find a piano. Okay, so then I started taking piano lessons,
Mm-hmm.
and but once again, I found I liked more the theory behind it than actually playing the piano.
Oh, uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah, I never really did. It was clear the piano was not my thing. Okay, but my younger sister and brother played the piano, and she was a piano performance major in college.
Mm-hmm.
So there was music all around, and my parents always listened to very good classical music. They would tell
Mm.
us this recording is the best recording of the Brandenburg concertos, and you're a kid, and you go, okay, fine, whatever. So the piano it was clear that was not my thing, so I dropped that. And then when I was in college, I picked up the guitar,
Mm-hmm.
and And I had several friends who played classical guitar, and that really intrigued me because the sounds were just incredible.
Yeah.
So, and there was a guitar teacher that you could take classes from at the college I attended. So I started studying classical guitar, and that was my instrument for, uh, through college. I found
Mhm.
it was a way of relieving stress. So
Mm,
music to me has always been a stress reliever.
yeah.
And so I played the guitar for, through being 50 or so. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Hmm.
that was my instrument.
Wow. It's funny that you mentioned that because I definitely think it's a great way to get escape from, homework or
Right.
school
Right.
or whatever that's going on. Um,
You see, for
so
you, music is nonverbal.
yes, that's right.
For me, it's not.
That's true. That's true. We are different.
Yeah,
And
for you, it's nonverbal. You can just kind of like, but yeah, I have to make the language come alive, and so
wow.
once again, it's telling a story. So
Mm-hmm.
right, but we haven't gotten to that part yet. Okay.
Yeah. So, you mentioned listening to classical music as a child. Um, what was your favorite piece of music to listen to?
Okay. The Brandenburg Concertos.
Okay.
The non-such recording. I even remember the label because it was
Mm-hmm.
just beaten into my head. That and then I remember Jean-Pierre Rampal had a series of recordings on the flute,
Okay.
and those were pretty. But definitely the Brandenburg Concertos.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty formative.
Okay. I actually have never listened to that yet, but
You've never listened to Brandenburg? Well, you should.
I never have, but that
Well,
will be my
and
next thing to
see, this
listen
is the thing
to.
about music. There's always more
Mm-hmm.
music to listen to.
Yes, that's so true. Especially because, there's such a long history behind it, and there are so many different types of music that
Right.
I feel like everyone can find, you know, one form of music that really intrigues them. And, you sing the opera. Um,
Right.
and that's funny because a lot of people, when they think of physicists, they don't think about opera. They don't really think about music in general. And so, how did that really come about?
Well, those who know me well know that I would tell them the only other thing I really wanted to be was an opera singer.
Mhm.
It was physics or opera. And I actually developed a taste for opera when I was in grad school. I was in grad school at U of Washington, and Seattle is a great opera town. There's the Seattle Opera, which
Mhm.
had an extremely good director. And I had friends who went to the opera. I didn't know a lot about it. I just started going to it. And it was like, wow, this is something I really want to be a part of.
Wow.
So I went to the opera because opera to me combines a symphony. It combines acting. The stage
Mhm.
settings are just out of this world.
Mhm.
I mean, they're elephants. I saw Aida with Linton Price in San Francisco. There were elephants on stage.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like, think of just something extravagant that adds something else to it. That's opera. The stories are just gut wrenching. Look at the story
Mhm.
of Don Carlo. So, and then the voices just soar. So, with me, it was like, what is there not to like about opera?
Mhm.
So, it was really going to it that made me completely fall in love with opera. And I never thought I could sing it.
Yeah.
It was just going to operas, any opportunity, I would be at the opera.
Wow. Okay. So you had no previous experience with, did you have any previous experience with singing in general or?
No, and this is what's really shocking is that I had never sung until 7 years ago.
Wow,
I mean,
that
my
is
mother says,
incredible.
well, I used to try to sing when I was vacuuming, doing my chores, but and it was very bad. No, I did not have any experience. I just knew I loved opera.
Wow. Um, so with no previous experience,
How did I do
like, yeah. How, like,
this? Okay.
how, mm-hmm,
That I don't shy away from a challenge.
mm-hmm,
So, and prior experience is not something I necessarily view as a must before I go and try something.
yeah,
So I decided um, I would take voice lessons.
mm-hmm,
And so I auditioned to sing with Cynthia Heyman Coleman, who was, she had a big career in opera.
mm-hmm,
You can look her up, and she taught at the U of Illinois. And sent her an email, no response. And then I finally saw her doing a rehearsal for an opera, and I was just blown away by all of these kids who could sing. So I asked her if I could audition for her.
mm-hmm.
And I had nothing to audition with. I didn't even have the right voice type of aria. I auditioned with a tenor aria, the
Wow.
Dalla Sua Pace, just a high tenor role. But I could read music, so I just sort of like stumbled through it. Then she said, "Why don't we start over?" And that was it. That was March of 2015.
As you talked about, there's so many different areas in opera. There's theater, there's singing. There are just so many different um parts to it. Did you have to take any other classes for that? Did you have to take acting classes? Or was it mainly just singing for you?
Okay, so when I was in college, these things
Mm-hmm.
you do that you just never think about
Uh-huh.
end up being important in the end. So I'm always open to new experiences. And I was walking, on campus one day, and this friend of mine stopped me and said, "Hey, we need some people for this play." And I said, well, I couldn't get rid of him. So I finally said, okay, what's the play? And it was a play to play. It was it was called The Serpent. And the part they couldn't cast was the devil. So that piqued my interest, the devil.
Mm-hmm.
An interesting role, a devious
Yeah.
individual.
Uh-huh.
So, so I actually had acting experience, and the acting teacher in college was very, very good, and I paid attention to her. So I had some acting experience. That was it. A couple of plays, okay?
Yeah.
But the main thing in opera is just having the voice. And I was being taught by one of the best, Cynthia Coleman.
Right.
And you know this, the teacher makes all the difference.
Yes. Yes.
And especially when it comes to voice. I mean, everyone at the U of Illinois wanted to work with her. So I was an outlier. The best people in her studio were being picked up by the San Francisco Opera. One of them at the time, uh, Alex Novakowski. Yeah, I mean, she just debuted at the Met.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was me. So studio classes with her were incredibly intimidating.
Yeah.
So I would wait until the end to sing.
Well, so for me, when I play the piano, I feel like I learn a lot from both my teacher and also hearing other people sing. Hearing other people play the piano, and hearing all these recordings. Um, do you think that the same thing applies for opera too? Like, were you able to learn, not only from Cynthia, but also from, all the other people in her studio as well?
Oh, absolutely. Look, since I had no experience, I mean, I just heard a lot of opera. Um, I was a sponge when it came to just seeing what the technique was. I mean, what I could
Hmm.
understand of the technique. And the best opera singers don't show their technique. But from the lessons I was getting, I could see what I wasn't doing right.
Right.
So the studio classes were just incredible.
Hmm.
She had the best students at the U of
Uh-huh.
Illinois. Everyone wanted to work with Cynthia Cole.
Right.
So it wasn't any secret that she was by far the best teacher. I have no idea why she took me. She said, "Well, every once in a while, Philip, you sing a note," and I go, "Wow, oh, okay." But that's like one out of a million. So I really have no idea why she took me.
Yeah, but that's amazing that you had that opportunity. Going back to science, how would you say, how would you say that you see an intersection between music and science in your life? Or do you think that they play completely separate roles for you?
Well, the talents that are needed for science to do it at a high level at opera are somewhat similar.
Hmm.
They both require incredible discipline. And the technical aspect of them,
Mm.
the technical things you have to master to be an opera singer,
Hmm.
very daunting. You have to control the breath. You have to control, it has to be something natural that's coming out of you.
Right.
It cannot seem forced. You look at the great opera singers, it's like they're just singing is just an accident as they open their mouth. The best science seems almost like it's a natural thing. It's very unnatural. You look at what it takes to do amazing things. You look at someone like Einstein. The thing about Einstein is he could hold in his head two views which everyone else would view as contradictory. Everything has the same speed of everything has the same obeys the same laws of physics, but the speed of light is a constant for everyone.
Hmm.
How is that possible? If
Yeah.
Because normally you subtract velocities when you're moving by a car. Well, your speed relative to the other car, you subtract them. But
Right.
everyone measures the same speed of light. He could hold in his head those things and make sense of it. So, that is one talent that it takes. And if you have that talent, you'll do amazing things. There are other things
Hmm.
that you can have. But the thing underlying all of that is discipline.
Hmm.
Um, I'm not one of these people who sees, you know, poetry and great artistry necessarily in physics. I see that in opera, but I don't necessarily see that in physics. I see
Hmm.
that, what we do requires you to completely. Well, here's one thing. One thing they do say in opera: surrender to the aria. Okay? Leave nothing back. Okay?
Hmm.
Okay, so, and there are problems in science, physics, that you just have to completely commit to. You cannot do it halfway. And that's high
Right.
TC, you just, because it consumes you and takes you places you just didn't think about.
Yeah.
And so I would say, and you know this from when you get into a piece, you for example, pick, the Rachmaninoff third concerto, right? You've
Uh-huh.
played it.
Oh, I have not, but
Those are pieces, that if you play those, you have to be committed
uh-huh. Exactly.
because that
I
is
know
an
exactly.
experience you
Hmm.
cannot take lightly. And you don't know
Right.
how you're going to end up on the other side. So,
Yeah. I totally agree because definitely when I'm performing and when I hear other people perform, the best pieces are always played by people who can just completely get into the mood and they can, understand the emotions behind the piece.
Right.
And they can really just transform themselves kind of into the piece kind of. And so I totally understand what you're trying to say.
Right.
And it's also funny that you mentioned Einstein because Einstein was also a musician.
Oh, that's
And
right. He played the violin. I forgot about
yes, yes,
that.
he did. And
Forgot about that.
there is a quote from him, and he says something like, I can't remember exactly what it said, but he says something like, um, he could never imagine his life without music in it. And I think that is just so funny that, he's this brilliant scientist who also is just, so passionate about music. And that's kind of the same with you because, you're this great physicist, you're, so accomplished, and you're also, so passionate about opera and you're able to perform in all these competitions, national competitions, and, take lessons with one of the best teachers at Illinois. So I think that's really incredible.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, I forgot about Einstein. And,
Mm-hmm.
maybe it is the fact that he was. Yeah, I like to just take things the way they are rather than tell stories, but it is interesting. The thing I think that is true about Einstein, he was able to entertain in his head things that us mortals would view as a contradiction. And I think
Right,
how he constructed special relativity is a classic example.
right,
But he just was true to it. He said that has to be true. And then
right,
he figured out what it meant. But there are few
right.
people who could do that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
maybe, because he was a musician, he could see that, um, sometimes, as you well know, when you're looking at a piece and you know the period it's written in, you can predict what the next note's going to be, how they're going to complete the phrase.
mm-hmm. Yes,
Um, and, maybe he'd played enough pieces where he couldn't figure out what they were going to do next.
right,
And maybe in that way of internalizing what pieces are about, and you can't always figure out how the musical sentences go together, you just have to accept that's what they did. Like
yeah.
there are lots of notes that Puccini wrote that, I just wonder, that was not necessary.
Yeah, but as you said, you have to surrender yourself to the
You just
aria.
surrender yourself to the
Exactly.
aria. You don't question Puccini. That's what he did.
Exactly. You
Okay,
just do it.
do it.
Exactly. So my last question for you before I ask you to maybe perform something is um if you had to choose, if you had to make a Spotify playlist and you could only put 5 songs on there of any kind, any songs ever, it could be songs, it could be classical music, anything. What would you choose?
Okay, so they'd probably all be opera arias.
Mm-hmm.
One would be Ella Jamai Mamo. It's from Don Carlos.
Mm-hmm.
You know the story of Don Carlos?
I do, I think.
You do. Okay. Tragic story.
Yes.
So King Filippo is sitting in his room. So for those of you who don't know the story of Don Carlo, I'll tell you the story. The opera opens with his son and his bride to be exchanging how much they love one another.
Mm-hmm.
But this exchange is interrupted. Someone comes and says, sorry, your bride has to be taken away. She is now committed to marry the king, your father.
Oh, yes.
Okay, and so the woman who he was supposed to be his bride is now going to be his
Uh-huh.
stepmother.
Yes.
It's just gut wrenching. But of
Mm-hmm.
course, you know, King Filippo, that's his name, realizes she doesn't love him. And so he sings this amazing aria, Ella Jamai Momo, she doesn't
Mm,
love me. She never did.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that is an amazing aria. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Dalla Sua Pace is right up there. It's a tenor aria, you know. Then there's this aria that Violetta sings in La Traviata. Um, I forgot the name of the aria because I don't quite remember soprano arias very well. Some of the Brandenburg concertos.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. I'm really just an opera nerd. I mean,
Yeah.
it turns out an aria from that famous aria in Madame Butterfly when
Mm,
she realizes that he isn't coming back.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say those would have to be on my list.
Yes. I would say all of those are pretty powerful choices. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
The power of opera. I mean, it's just a lot of people think, oh, the stories are kind of trivial, but they're stories, and what in life isn't a story. Especially when you've
Right.
had kids. You have to try to get them to do various things, and you make up
Right.
stories to get them to do things. And so, opera is just another avenue for exploring
Mm-hmm.
how contorted human emotions can be.
Mm,
So,
yes.
yeah, that's why I like it.
Yeah. All right. To end this off, maybe do you think you have a song that you could perform for us?
Do you want the whole thing? Because these arias tend to be long. Or do you just want to
Just
snip it?
anything you're comfortable with. Whatever you want.
Okay. What language do you want?
um, which language are you uh, most comfortable to sing it
Well,
in?
we have to sing in all of them. So you just pick one, and I'll see what I can do.
All right. Maybe let's do Italian.
Okay. Italian. Okay. Okay. So I'll sing Il Lacerato Spirito by it's Fiesco's aria in Simon Boccanegra. It's a bass
Okay.
aria. Of course, it's a bass
Mm-hmm.
aria. That's why I'm singing it. Okay, let me just get the first pitch
All
from.
right.
A te l'estremo Dio, Palagio altera, fredda sepolcro dell'angelo mio, ne a protegger lo valsi. Oh, maledetto, oh, vile sedatore, et o vergine soffristi, rapito è lei la vergine corona. Oh, che dissi deliro. Oh, mi perdono. Do you want to hear more?
That was great. If you want to keep going, go ahead.
That's the recit. So I'll sing a little bit of the aria.
All right.
Okay. Il lacerato spirito del mesto genitore era serbato a strazio di infamia e di dolore. Il serto le per me, prego per me, prego per me, prego per
Woo! That was amazing. I was able to feel your emotions through the screen, so that was great.
Well, thank you, thank you. So, yeah, the setup for that is Fiesco is a nobleman. He has sequestered his daughter in a palace so that she wouldn't be affected by things in the world. Well, you know how that story ends. Simon Bocanegra breaks in, and they develop a relationship. She becomes pregnant. The opera opens with an introduction, and in which it's clear that his daughter Maria has died at the hands of Simon Bocanegra, but she's left a child. So Fiesco comes in and sings this gut-wrenching aria about I'm leaving this palace for the last time, a te l'estremo addio, Palagio Altero. And he's cursing the palace and saying, I didn't protect my daughter. And that is what the aria is about.
Wow. That is powerful.
Yeah. That's the standard bass aria.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining the podcast, Philip. It was great having you.
Okay.
And thank you so much for sharing your stories. And I really enjoyed listening to them.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you so much. Bye.